We've wanted to get our hands on one of these IQ Powertools rail saws for a long time. Now, IQ has been extremely generous to us. We're blessed to have a great relationship with them. They sent us this one out to try out since we had already given a test to their 244 model behind me. The initial thoughts when you open this thing up and set it up, this is a bad mamma jamma piece of machinery. It's got the same powertrain and drive head as the 244 and appears to have the same vacuum system as the 428 HEPA series vacuum that they have. Super strong motor, excellent drive. The dust extraction seems to be extremely, extremely good. You got super smooth action on the rails here as far as travel goes. I was a little concerned initially about this hose getting in the way, but the way they have it designed, it does tuck out of the way as you move the machine. You've got simple power, green on, e-stop paddles type for emergency stopping, so you don't have to look for the stop button. You also have another stop button on your handle here. So if you're running it and you encounter an issue, you can immediately shut the equipment down with the press of a thumb. Just like with their 244 model, you've got a green, yellow, red indicator for your power on your power head. So as you're cutting, if it's in the green, you're good. In the yellow, you can slow it down a little bit. In the red, you're moving a little too fast. Now you're probably wondering, hey, this is supposed to be a dust extraction saw. It clearly doesn't use water. If this thing is only sucking from above, how in the world is it gonna extract dust from underneath? Well, on the 244, you've got dust extraction at the top here, and you have dust extraction at the bottom here. So when you're pushing this through the saw, it's always downdrafting through that and updraft through that. So it extracts the dust out. Now, how do you do that on a rail saw? Well, check this out. On the rail saw, you have your updraft here. So it's sucking around both sides of the blade, but then underneath, just like the 244, it's got a downdraft port right here. But if you're traveling with this, that downdraft has to move. Well, some pretty cool engineering they put behind that is there's a trolley system here beneath it that this downdraft port actually travels with the blade here. So you cut through the material and you've got an immediate downdraft that travels along with the carriage. The setup of the machinery is extremely simple. You pull it out, you pull a lever, you lift the machine, the legs extract and lock in place. Then you go around to the other side, do the same thing, and you're ready to rock and roll. Release your carriage, fire it up, and go. You do have some support panels here that they stay on board. They mount on the saw just like that, and that's gonna give you some pitch support on your large format. If you're doing cross cuts, you can lay your material out there and not have to worry about, as soon as the cut is complete, the piece falling off, because you've got these support wings. So now that we've talked about how the thing is built, let's see how it cuts. Now that's the most important thing, right? Because everybody wants a good clean cut and everybody thinks that you need a water saw for that. Well, IQ may prove you wrong, so let's check it out. We are running the IQ hard material blade here. It's built for porcelain and granite, and we're gonna cut some large format porcelain. So let's see how this brand new hard material blade does on some of this larger panel porcelain. So we're gonna cut this 12 by 24 matte finish porcelain tile here. I'm just gonna do a cross cut on this one. We're just gonna test general blade quality. Now, to be fair, I'm putting this blade on brand new. I'm not gonna dress it. I'm not gonna run a stone over it. I'm just gonna take it out of the package and cut and see what the cut quality is. Is that fair? You do have a fence down on this end, so I'm gonna move the wings down and then run my cross cut here. I'll place my material against that fence there to keep it square. So let's run a test cut. Power on. So now, I know you probably saw that snap right there. This 24 by 48 had a huge bow in it. So as we relief, as that thing cut through there, it was bowed up like this. Once we got to about, I don't know, 5/8, 3/4 of the way through the tile, the tension in that tile just let go, released, and snapped. So it snapped there. Two of my biggest concerns with any tile saw is, number one, cut quality. You already know it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, and it will never be absolutely perfect, but that's why we have polishing pads. You can get them anywhere, especially Rocksteady Tool Company. The other concern is how straight and true does that cut stay? You'll notice with a lot of 10-inch blades on a wet saw, especially the thinner kerf ones, they'll tend to walk, or they'll give you an S cut, or they'll give you a bow cut. And that's because they don't have a lot of core support, so that blade actually flexes as you're pushing that material through, and it causes it to veer. With this IQ, it has a large core support on there, so it's cutting really, really straight. Now you can see as the blade is going through this material, on the front end of it, the cut is absolutely pristine. It looked like it wasn't chipped at all. I mean, it was like butter. But on the back side of the cut, you can see the cut, the way it is now. On the back side of the cut, it's chipped up. It appears that as it pushes through, that material is squeezing back on itself and catching the back side of the blade, causing it to rip up and chip it. If I could get this thing to not crown back together on the blade, I think the cut would be absolutely perfect. It's only on the back side of the blade, that material. So you can see on this side of the material, we've got a beautiful, absolutely beautiful cut, no chip. But on the back side of it here, you see we've got chipping. And I believe that that's because as that blade's passing through here, this piece in the material is pinching back on the back side of that blade, causing it to chip. I don't know what the solution is to that, but it's just something to consider. And to be fair, you have that same problem on wet saws too. So let's ditch this one and turn one of these 24x48s long ways and give us a long rip and see if it stays true. We'll throw a 6-foot level on it after we rip it, see if it bowed, see if it's straight. Okay, so here's another 24x48. This is a polished version of almost the exact same tile. We're gonna do a full-length rip on this, square it up on the fence, see how it runs, and then test the cut quality, and then test the straightness of the cut itself. Okay, so we had similar results on this as we did on the cross cut. Nice clean cut on this side of the piece. Back side's a little more chipped. This tile also had some bow in it, even in this long ways, and it snapped when it got to about 3 inches from the end. I'm gonna say, from my best educated guess, it's because that tile was bowed. I don't think the saw had anything to do with that. So let's pull out a 6-foot level and put it against this cut edge and see if we're nice and true, because that's what's most critical. So I'm very pleased with those results. I mean, that's extremely straight. You can see it for yourself with your own eyes here. And you saw I wasn't working the material or the blade or anything like that. I was just steadily pulling straight through. So that's very reassuring that you're gonna get a very straight and clean cut. You most definitely can't do that on your wet saw, that's for sure. I mean, we've cut these 24x48s before, rip cuts on the DeWalt 36,000, get water everywhere, and there's no way you're getting a straight cut just because it's not designed for this. Okay, so now that we've proved a nice, clean, straight rip on a 48-inch tile, I think I want to show you one of the things I'm most excited about. So this thing, it'll cross cut, it'll rip cut up to 52 inches, but something else that it does that I think is really cool, it miters. So now we ripped this one down nice and straight. So now that we're gonna try this bevel, I wanna try and miter this piece that we've already cut. So I'm gonna position this piece of tile here and try and back cut that as if I were doing a miter. So now I'm gonna position this piece and try and get it lined up to where that blade's gonna hit my miter just right here and try and rip it. Now for this miter, so that I don't have any guess as to where the blade's gonna land on that material, I'm gonna force the carriage all the way down and I'm gonna lock it in place using this knob here on the back side to hold it in place. That way I know I can line up my miter perfect and then run the machine through. So now one cool feature on this saw is that, you know, we're gonna try and run this miter and it could get a little squirrely on me as far as the material shifting back here as I'm working up here. They've got this material clamp here that you can slide around, adjust the tension here, and then clamp that material down so that while you're operating this saw, you don't have to worry about this part of the material moving. Now the theory of that is great. It kept a extremely straight and true cut, just like it did on the straight rip. Now that's pretty chippy, and that's on me. Normally you're gonna hold your miter back from your straight edge at least a 1/16. That way you're not cutting into the finish of the tile itself. So I had it positioned a little too far into the cut, so it chipped the finish. So let's flip it around. I'll reposition it, and I'll try and keep it off of that cut edge a little bit further. That way that blade doesn't get next to the finish and chip it. So just like the clamping system for the material they have right here, they also have a bracket that rides in this T-slot that will accept another one of those clamps. I just don't have one yet. So that's what this is for. It would hold, you could position this material perfectly, clamp it down and not have to worry about it moving. For me, I'm gonna have to try and hold this material in place while that blade goes through, but we're held tight here. So hoping we hold true. All right, so that's much better. And you can see what I'm talking about here, where we stay off of the cut edge on a miter so that you still have some material there, because you don't ever want to really cut into your finish. When you run your epoxy for your mitered edge, you kind of want some backing for that epoxy to fill in so you can get a nice smooth edge. Each installer is a little bit different. Now, when we're doing miters, and when most guys are doing miters, they like to back cut their miter more than 45, because when you're bringing two pieces of material together on a 90-degree angle, everybody knows that if you have a 45 here and a 45 there, it's not going to seat very well. Sometimes it'll splay open a little bit. So you want to back cut that 45 a little more. That's just a matter of adjusting this set screw so that you can get 47 degrees on that miter, which if I were mitering a piece of tile, that's what I would do. I would run it to 47 degrees. That way it back cuts and leaves you an additional, between the two, 4 degrees of space in that angle. So when they come together and meet, you've got a little more wiggle room there. Overall, badass. Having the ability to miter on a rail saw, that's cool. So overall, I think this is an amazing piece of equipment. You get a pretty good cut out of it. The setup is extremely smooth. The vacuum system and the extraction system seems to work incredibly well. I mean, you saw it yourself here with your own eyes. The ability to miter on a long rip cut, super cool. And at the very least, it can do the majority of the miter work for you so that you can tune it with your grinder as well. We've got nice, perfectly straight cuts on this thick, large panel porcelain. I mean, overall, just a pretty cool piece of equipment. You know, ever since we started using these IQ saws, we were hesitant, to say the least, in the very beginning. But as you can see, we've amassed a collection of these IQ saws. It only makes sense, right? Because one of the things I think about running crews is quality of life for my guys, for my installers. In our area, it gets cold, stays cold for several months out of the year. Not having to run water, not having to deal with the cumbersome water saws and dealing with the ice cold weather and all that kind of stuff. Being able to cut inside is a great thing for my guys, right? So having these pieces of equipment, having these kind of tools, seeing these advancements, super stoked about that. I've used water rail saws. I just don't like them. I've always wanted, ever since IQ announced this rail saw coming out using their dustless technology, waterless technology, been super excited. And today's the day. We got it brand new. Overall, I really like it. Thank you, IQ, once again.